We are here to talk waiver wire in this segment, and I am going to pop out right now my top 10 list of pickups, and we'll talk about it right here. We'll start at the top. Who wants to count up from 10? It's J.K. Dobbins. I think he is the number one pickup of the week in general, no matter even if you don't even need a running back, I think I would want to pick him up because, man, he looks shot out of a cannon. He was 9th out of 70 qualifying running backs in missed tackles forced per attempt per fantasy points data. And he actually was second for the week in explosive run percentage. Of course, that long run does not hurt. So I think he's a must-add on the chance that his luck has finally turned. How about Brandin Cooks, who does get it done in week number 1? He scored. He had a very strong first read target share of 24%. And Jake Ferguson got hurt. Now, I know the latest reporting on Ferguson is he's going to have a chance to play. I love Ferguson this summer, so I'm very upset. But I loved Brandin Cooks and drafted him on fake teams that I draft at fantasypoints.com in the summer. I just basically draft fake teams all summer based on ADP, and I try to form the best team based on the current ADP. I was taking Brandin Cooks literally every time. Well, not literally. Let's say 90% of the time because I was 50 spots over his ADP. 50! That's like 3.5, 4 rounds over the ADP. I didn't understand it. And he's only owned in 32% of Yahoo leagues. He's got good chemistry with Dak Prescott. He was dealing with a knee in the summer, but he looked fine. He looked spry out there in week number 1. I regret not being into Baker Mayfield this summer. I will say that. I did love Chris Godwin, and I ranked Mike Evans over his ADP. And I love Jalen McMillan, yet somehow I didn't rank Baker that high. I guess it's the cheat code or lack thereof. He doesn't run, so he's got to really go off to get it done for fantasy. But that's what he did in week number 1, leading all quarterbacks in EPA. And I do like him this week, by the way, against the man coverage that he'll likely see against Detroit in that playoff rematch. We'll get into some early thoughts on the games, but Baker Mayfield is clearly the top quarterback to pick up and roll with. Pretty damn good receiving core. Plus, Rachaad White's a great receiving back. Really good. Now, Bucky Irving might usurp Rachaad in terms of at least half the early down carries. But, man, Rachaad is such a good receiver out of the backfield. Tank Bigsby is next up on the list. I don't know if any starting running back hurt himself more in week 1 than Travis Etienne. Bigsby, who only had a 48% route share, which is a little worrisome. Bigsby was at 6.1 yards per carry compared to 3.7 for Etienne. He also had that big fumble. And Doug Peterson has been telling us this for 2 years. You know, when I watch Etienne, I think, okay, he's good, but not great. I think he's a dual backfield guy, and it looks like he will, in fact, be a dual backfield guy. Would Tank Bigsby well in the mix, get those tough inside yards, short yardage. He's much improved from last year. I'll put another running back on the list, and this is a little bit more of a long game play for the entirety of the season. But, man, I thought Jaylen Wright, the running back for the Miami Dolphins, I thought he looked really, really good in the preseason. Raheem Mostert already banged up with a chest issue. Devon Achane already banged up with an ankle issue. Achane managed just 24 yards on 10 carries as the team total just 81 yards rushing, which was pretty weird, 3.24 yards per carry. That could be a little bit of a fluke, but bottom line is both dudes are hurt and Jaylen Wright is good. So there's going to come a time when he is in fantasy lineups at some point, in some way, shape, or form. Next up, it's Isaiah Likely. Pretty obvious selection, but do keep in mind he comes in a little lower on the list than you would expect for a guy who went off in week number 1. But his 61% route share in the game would have really ranked only 23rd best last season. I do think that we'll see a lot of 12 personnel. They ran the most 12 personnel in week 1 since the 2019 Eagles, who, by the way, had a rookie tight end who was the number 2 who produced, Dallas Goedert. So I do think Likely has a chance to remain in the mix. Look, tight end is volatile. He doesn't get a lot of targets most weeks, but he makes a lot of plays with those targets. So I might even take 4 likely targets compared to like 7 for someone else because, again, he makes a lot out of those targets. Another player I'm going to pick up on the waiver wire who is in my top 10 list of pickups would be Greg Dortch. I was screaming at the television as a Trey McBride person this past Sunday. I was screaming like Homer Simpson. I was like, Dortch! Because Dortch was kind of taking over here. He only played 62% of the snaps, but he had a very good game, obviously. If we look back at 10 starts in the career for Greg Dortch, he's averaged 8.3 targets per game, which would be good for wide receiver 16, 14.3 fantasy points per game, wide receiver 21, and he had a snap share of 70% or more. We did hear this in the summer that Dortch was going to be kind of their number 2 receiver, and it kind of looked that way, much to those who drafted Marvin Harrison Jr.'s chagrin. You know, I thought about listing Harrison as a player to trade for. I'm not sure I feel that strongly about it. I did rank him pretty much where everybody else had him. You know, one of the problems is, as I was telling our guy Mike Cohen off the air, you know, Marvin Harrison's a downfield threat, and Kyler Murray is simply too short to let these downfield routes develop. You know, sometimes he sees a clear picture and he's got time, boom, he's got a good arm, makes all the throws. But I think the lack of height is really, really going to be a problem for Marvin Harrison. I'm a little worried about Trey McBride, quite frankly, but seems to work out for Greg Dortch, though. If you're into that sort of thing in a PPR, certainly need to have the PPR element for Greg Dortch to have any real appeal. Here's a guy who I think is really interesting, and he is in my top 10 for pickups for the week. It is Tyler Johnson of the LA Rams, the former Buccaneer. You know, when he was coming out, I kind of comped him to Robert Woods. And his 2.47 yards per route run in week 1, that was 30th out of 157 receivers with at least 1 catch. He's got the inside-outside versatility that Sean McVay covets, and that's how I got the Robert Woods comp. So I know we have others involved here, that rookie. We've got, of course, Demarcus Robinson. That the rookie's name escaped me real quick. Covington, right? So I'm going to have to bring that up again. I mean, he's a good blocker, but, you know, we're looking to replace Puka Nacua for at least 4 games. Jordan Whittington. No, it's not Jordan Whittington. I don't even think it's Demarcus Robinson. I think it's Tyler Johnson. 2 more to go here. Wan'Dale. I was actually into Wan'Dale this summer as a late pick. You know, Malik Neighbors only ran 12.5% of his routes from the slot and saw only 1 screen target. That was one of the appealing elements with Malik Neighbors. Now, I'm sure he'll get more action, but it was Wan'Dale who got a lot of most of the slot snaps and those gadgety looks. 12 targets for Wan'Dale Robinson. And then last but not least, believe it or not, Quentin Johnston had one of the highest first read target shares last week at 41.7 with Chark on IR. You better do it now, Quentin Johnston, these next 3 games, or else you may never get another opportunity. He does have talent, and he has flash.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now, absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at 0 cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.